Well, good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Bill.
This is the first Monday of the year for FNC Morning View.
Well, Happy New Year.
A Happy New Year to you. and we're talking about forecast. Let's start with the game tonight. Alabama's playing Notre Dame for the BCS National Championship. Now, let's talk about, we've got an employee who packed it up and went, I think. It certainly, his thing shows out of the office. So that's all fantastic.
Yeah, well, the phrase is going to be disappointed.
It helps the economy. You know, there was an article this morning that's out that says every home game for the University of Alabama, this is not a home game for Alabama, of course, the game is in Miami, said that every home game pumped over $24 million into the local economy. And so that's all good. People spending money in South Florida, it's all good.
Oh. Well, that's what the economy is going to need, Bill. I think it's going to need kind of a push.
We're doing our forecast, and so you've sort of sidestepped who's going to win. The odds makers say Alabama is a 10-point favorite. What do you think?
I tend to agree with them. I think that Notre Dame is going to have a little issue.
So you heard it here, folks. I'm not saying it was first, but you heard it here that Alabama is going to cover the spread.
I think so.
All right. So since you're into prognostication, a fancy term for forecasting. Guessing, exactly. so there's nothing scientific about it. It's just wild. Okay? All right. So let's talk about the trends for 13. Okay. So where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, you can start with the general economy. There are a lot of things that are saying that it's going to be better this year. A lot of things that are saying that it's going to be worse. I mean, let's talk unemployment. Unemployment's been getting better, but largely because of two things. One, the private hiring has been going up at a fairly good rate.
That's a good thing.
But the participation rate has been declining, okay?
So people say, forget it, I'm out.
Well, that's part of it, but their demographics have been responsible for a lot of that. Some folks are getting old, you know, and they're just leaving. They're saying, I've had it, I'm out of the
You're, of course, talking about others.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's put a number on the table. GDP for 13. The Dorsey forecast GDP for 13.
I think it's going to grow at about 2.5% for the year. So 2.5% to 3%, somewhere in there. So
for those of you that don't know, what we do at FNC is we bet on everything, not money, but we bet embarrassing things. So he set the line, somebody sets the line, and you decide which side you're going to get on that line. So he set the line at 2.5. Right. I'm going to say we're going to be higher.
All right. Well, good for you.
So I hope I'm right too. All right. So let's go to the next topic.
Well, I think unemployment, I was talking about that, it's 7.8% right now, but I think it's going to, and it may decline a little bit more, but then I think it's going to come back up. I think as the spring comes, the participation rate is going to increase. Total employment is not going to go up to cover that, and I think unemployment is going to get worse before it gets better.
So the Fed sits on the sideline.
Right.
Because they're watching, of course, they've already given us some guidance, 6.5% unemployment. They start looking at raising rates again and disengaging quantitative easing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about where you think we're going to go. What's the high point of unemployment, and where does it finish the year in terms of a rate?
Well, I think it may climb back up over 8%, and then maybe, and then toward the end of the year, it's going to start declining again. I think it could get down into near 6%, 6.5%, somewhere in that range.
So we're at 6.5. We'll touch 6.5 by the
end of the year.
The end of the year.
Right.
You think so?
I think it could. Yeah.
Is that a yes?
It's a lot. Well, the problem is we don't know what the Congress is going to do. If they went through the fiscal cliff and they came up with a budget without cutting expenditures very much, when they come up to the debt ceiling, there's going to be a lot of demand to cut expenditures. If they do, then all bets are off. It's going to keep the unemployment rate pretty high. But if they hold off on cutting expenditures, we may actually see it go down into the 6.5%, 7% range.
So do we touch 6.5?
Based upon what the Republicans are saying, I say no. I think it's going to just touch a little bit below 7.
All right. So the Fed's on the sidelines all year.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about interest rates.
Well, interest rates are interesting right now. 10 years at 191.
And that's up fairly significantly over the last 3 months.
Right. You know, the Wall Street Journal has been predicting that interest rates are going to start spiking real soon. There have been several articles and editorials lately saying the interest rates are going to go up, bond demand's going to go down. Of course, they've been predicting that for 4 years. So, eventually I think they'll be right, but I don't think it'll be this year. I think that interest rates are going to...
rates low this year.
Late this year, yeah.
Mortgage rates, where are they this year?
Right now at 3.34 for a 30-year.
Do they cross 4 this year, or are they staying in the threes?
They're gonna start climbing a little bit, but I think that 4 is probably where they're gonna top out, somewhere around there.
For the year.
Right.
Okay, so another good year. Mortgage origination. There's several studies that say mortgage origination is going down. And then Barclays came out with a research report that says we're going to touch 1.9 trillion this year.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think Barclays is optimistic, but
on the Georgies.
I think they are.
I
hope they're right.
They pass the eggnog around.
But I think that's a little optimistic. The inventory has been coming down. It's probably going to bottom out this year.
I think the rationale was we're going to see a continuation of HARP and some of the other government programs.
Today they're probably going to announce a big settlement with all the servicers. $10 billion settlement. About 3.5 of that is going to go to compensate people that have gone through the foreclosure process.
Right.
About 6.5 is going to existing homeowners that are facing foreclosure. So that may put a lot of that uncertainty about the servicing and the lawsuits and everything aside, and people can get back to business.
Do you think the postponement of the risk rules for Basel III until January 1st of 2019 will have any impact now on, any positive impact on banks?
Well, yeah. I think that, it's not a terrible thing about banks, but I think it's a typical thing about banks is that they will focus on that about a day before it actually becomes relevant.
But they'll finally focus on it. And so you think moving that back will be positive for banks because they will be able to hold, in essence, riskier assets.
Right.
Or what are perceived to be riskier assets.
Right.
There's a big move if they had to implement that, there would be a big move to sovereign assets, right?
Exactly.
And because they're perceived to be less risky. We found out, though, that sometimes that's not the case. So what are some other trends you see in 13?
Well, we're going to have some increased regulation starting to come into effect with all the Dodd-Frank stuff that's finally going to get some rules in print, and we'll see how that impacts us. So we're going to have that. Let's see, residential investment. Residential investment is one thing that always precedes a comeback, and it was up 20% this year in 2012 over the prior year.
So home builders are actually going out and starting to build again.
And I think that's going to continue. I think that, I don't know if it'll continue at 20%, but it's going to continue a positive increase.
That's a healthy percentage increase.
It certainly is. So.
Anything else?
I predict that you're going to run 1,000 miles.
One of my New Year's resolutions is to run 1,000 miles this year. That's just 5 miles a day for 200 days. That's all it is. But it's 5 miles a day for 200 days. And so, having said all that, one of the things we need to do is we need to predict the Super Bowl. We haven't done that. There's this stock market forecast mechanism on the market goes as the Super Bowl goes, right? And it depends on where the NFC or the AFC, one of the old NFC teams or AFC teams wins the Super Bowl.
All right.
And so who do you think, based on what we know today, yesterday Seattle looked mighty good when they played Washington. I thought RG3 was going to pull it out, but he got hurt. And so based on what we know today, if you had to forecast, who would you think wins the Super Bowl? So I'll get it down to, you want me to narrow it down to 3 or 4? If you pick. All right, you pick.
I don't even know who's playing.
Okay. So probably 2 of the best teams in the league are the Atlanta Falcons and the Denver Broncos. Although smart money typically says that there's going to be somebody come out of the blue and win the Super Bowl. Many times the teams with the best records don't win. And so what we'll do is leave that for another.
All right.
All right. So this is FNC's Morning View. I'm Bill Rayburn with Bob Dorsey. This is our forecast for 2013. You all have a fantastic day.